In one of Mary's purported messages in her purported apparitions at Medjugorje, she said something that I thought was really profound and yet so simple. She said to the children in her message, pray for the Holy Spirit. For when you have the Holy Spirit, you have everything. Isn't that beautiful? And we know that that's so true because the Holy Spirit is, as St. Paul reminds us in Romans 5, verse 5, the Holy Spirit has been poured into, or the love of God has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. In other words, God's love, and in fact, God's very essence, right? Because God is love, is communicated to us as creatures through the Holy Spirit. That's how we receive God's love. That's how we are able to be in communion with God, to be connected to the Lord, to be in relationship to the Father and the Son, right? Remember, St. Paul also said, no one can say Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. In other words, it's when we encounter the Holy Spirit, when we receive the Holy Spirit, that we are able to be in relationship to God, communion with God, to know personally, directly, by experience, the very love and grace and mercy of God. So the Holy Spirit is key, absolutely key. And many years ago, I came across a beautiful prayer originally written by Cardinal Mercier to the Holy Spirit. And I remember always being drawn to this prayer, and over time I kind of adapted it and added to it a little bit. And I want to share it with you today. It's a beautiful prayer, which I pray daily. And I just encourage all of you as well to pray it. And the way I've adapted it is as follows. O Holy Spirit, soul of my soul, beloved spouse of the Blessed Virgin Mary, I adore you and I desire you with all my heart. Enlighten me, guide me, strengthen me, purify me, console me. Enkindle in me the fire of your love. Tell me what I ought to do and convict me, inspire me, and prompt me to do it. I promise to be docile and submissive in everything you permit to happen to me. Only show me what is your will. Brothers and sisters, I encourage you every day when you get up to greet the Holy Spirit. In fact, many years ago, I read a book called Good Morning, Holy Spirit. And again, we should greet the Holy Spirit every day, invoke the Holy Spirit, welcome the Holy Spirit into our hearts. And in doing so, we can be assured that we will remain in communion and in relationship to the Lord. And by the way, that's why I love the Blessed Virgin Mary so much, because as I've said before in other teachings, she really is Mrs. Holy Spirit. She's the spouse of the Holy Spirit. She is the one human creature who welcomed the Holy Spirit perfectly, who allowed the Holy Spirit to completely overshadow her, to fill her. She was full of grace, and grace is another word for the Holy Spirit. And so, if we want to the Holy Spirit, another great way to invoke her is through Mary. And there's a beautiful prayer. Come, Holy Spirit, come by means of the powerful intercession of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, your well-beloved spouse. In fact, many people have started to add that as a second little prayer after each decade of the Rosary, after the Fatima prayer, to pray that one as well. And I do often as well pray that. And so, brothers and sisters, today and every day, let us invoke the Holy Spirit. And you might say, well, why do we have to? God knows I need the Holy Spirit. Why doesn't he just give it to me? Well, again, it has to do with that great, mystery that God waits for us to exercise faith. He doesn't, bypass our free will. We must consent, and we must also exercise faith, which means confidence and trust in his promises. And that's why Jesus says, ask, you shall receive. You have not because you ask not. And so we need to ask. We need to remind ourselves to ask, to beseech, to intercede, to, pray for these graces. And know that as we do so, God then will honor us. And I encourage you then today to invoke the Holy Spirit and to know that his love then will be poured into your heart, as St. Paul reminds us.